has the sense of the subjectivity, but it likes to attribute it to the object. Yeah? So basically, non-duality is just negating that. That's all. Because many of us are using it, we're living as it, and so we're attempting to sort of squeeze two-ness into oneness. Yeah? And the whole point is just to negate the two-ness, and you may find out your oneness. Yeah? Because you're not going to find out your oneness as two. It's just not going to happen. Yeah? So this thing it is not a path that goes this way. It sort of looks at who the hell's on the path, and when you see it as not you, that may be the end of the path. Yeah? Because you actually will be, not conceptually, but what you're looking for. Yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, it saves you a lot of time and trouble. And your spiritual budget can go to other fucking affairs. Yes? Unless you like retreats and stuff, you know, some people do. I don't like to sit for 13 hours and meditate. Yeah? You know, if you have bad, like high blood pressure, maybe it'd be good to meditate 10 to 20 minutes. But if you're meditating 13 hours a day for 3 weeks, you think you're going somewhere. You do. You believe this is going somewhere. This is really that fabricated rug that non-duality pulls out from underneath you. Yeah? And so hopefully if the talk goes well, you'll get nothing, and it will leave you with your own devices, and hopefully you may see they're not your devices. Yeah? Yeah. So instead of using what you're not to try to find what you are, you see what you're not from what you are. Instead of looking for what you are from what you're not, you see what you're not, looking for what you are from what you are. It's just a switch. It's like a switcheroo. And it doesn't take much. Just because it seems to have always looked this way doesn't mean it is this way. And if you could have a little whack and see the horse in front of the cart finally, then when the head assumes and lives as if the cart's in front of the horse, you won't believe it anymore. There will be a healthy suspicion to it, yeah? And therefore, all the drives and the perceptions and the narrations and all of it, all that momentum in time will be questioned because they're all predicated on the starting point. And what non-duality is questioning is the starting point. It's not questioning the practices you're doing, it's questioning who the hell is the practitioner, yeah? If it isn't you, maybe we'll see what happens, yeah? And maybe, just maybe, you will come to the conclusion that you are what you're looking for, yeah? Now, here, yeah? And basically, if there's any requirements set to be that, it's coming from what you're not, yeah? So there's a famous statement by St. Francis. It says, what's looking is what you're looking for. He doesn't say who's looking, he says what's looking. So what's looking is what's looking now, every one of us. There's a what, it's not a who. The narration is it's you looking, but in fact it's what's looking, yeah? Yeah. So that what's looking is what you're looking for. It doesn't say what's looking, yeah, is what you're looking for after the you, the you goes through 800 different requirements. No. Nothing has to occur to the you that you're not to see from what you are, because you're inherently in that position now. Yeah? Every idea that you've gone somewhere then there's that pressure to return is based on a fallacy. And so the newest book we have comes out of a yogic mantra that is very famous, and I did a talk in Philly, and on the yoga studio wall, and people translated a lot of ways, but there was this mantra, and it said, gone, 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 to the other shore. So let's say in Buddhism, the other shore is like awakening or whatever. So, nirvana or satori. So gone, gone, gone to the other shore, upon having arrived on never having left. Yeah. That's the essence of non-duality. So if you just put on having never left, maybe you would have gone, but you wouldn't have gone. You know what I mean? So on having never left would change the whole story. Yeah? can save some gons, really. You can just, because if it seems to happen to you, it's going to tell you it's always been this way. It's just, that's the fact. Yeah. So if you believe you weren't somewhere and then suddenly you somehow did something to be somewhere, that somewhat negates the whole story by immediately implying, like across the board, on having never left, it's always been this way. So basically what we've seemingly been doing without us knowing it, we think we dream at night, but we're in an awake dream. So as the Course in Miracles say, there's you and I are the dreaming of the dream. Now I don't like the word dream because it sounds like a thing. So you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. A complete verb at all times. As long as you seem to be here, the dreaming is occurring. There's no point where you, as the dreaming and this dream, comes out of the river and becomes the observer of the dreaming. That's included in the dreaming. If this is appearing, you're not out of the dreaming. Yeah. So you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. We forget that we're dreaming. Wow, that's incredible. How does that happen? Well, it doesn't, but it seems to happen. Yeah. So seems means it appears to that which is dreaming that it's forgotten that it's dreaming. How does it trigger this? By being identified as the dreamt. So that's where we're all starting right now, is being identified as the dreamt. All right? Suddenly, so here we go. You and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. Yeah? And if you read the Course in Miracles, it says you and I give everything all the meaning it has. So that's what dreaming's doing. Yeah? Giving everything all the meaning it has. So now suddenly you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. We forget that we're dreaming. And in that forgetfulness, we give everything we're dreaming the power to affect us. It sounds like everyone's day. If you could step back, you would see it as everyone's day. Yeah? We forget that we're the dreaming through the identification as the dreamt, and now what we're dreaming, thoughts, feelings, this and that, are now biting us in our proverbial ass. Yeah? Because suddenly the thought, we own it as the doer of the thought. My thought. And as soon as you own a thought, the thought has the ability to own you. As soon as you own a feeling, my feeling, that feeling can ruin your holiday. Yeah? You can see what you're not, and I'm telling you, it's an activity. It's all it is. It's verbing. It's mental verbing. That's all it is. Yeah? And what is before will never be made after to that. Yeah? What is before is not of thought. It sees thoughts. Yeah? It sees selfing. I use this terminology a lot, selfing, because I don't like to call self, because that would imply it's a thing. Yeah? And so my idea of selfing is caught by a statement, the act of being identified as a self. Now, it's not like the act of being identified is the verb and then there's a self to be identified with. No, it's a complete verb. The act of being identified as an imaginary self. So if you go into the thought system, you can see you're in the laboratory all day. If you go into the thought system, the thoughts, yeah, are about you as a body. Yeah. You think about you in the past, how are you pictured as a body? You're worrying about you in the future, how are you pictured as a body? When you go into the memories, how are you held in memories as a body? Perceptions, see things. We don't see no thing, we're seeing things, yes? So if the attention and interest that really is the basis of our living here, upon the first basis of conscious contact, yep, if that interest and attention is in those systems, and why it keeps going there is because the systems are implying there's a you, yeah? And that's the honeypot. Because if you had a thought, if you saw some of the thoughts that ruin your day as Stanley's and you were Paul, they wouldn't have the ability to ruin your day. But as soon as the same thoughts were called yours again, they'd have the ability to ruin your day. It's not the thoughts, obviously. Yes? And if you look at thoughts, are they playing on your forehead to everyone else? No, the thoughts are going this way, yeah? They're playing to an audience of no thing, yeah? The thoughts are trying to convince no thing. That what? They're a thing, basically, isn't it? I don't see any of your thoughts going around your head, because that's not its audience. Its audience is this way. It's that thing, that no thing that's looking and seeing and hearing and feeling and tasting, that's what it's attempting to convince. So basically, it's a huge advertising campaign. But the dilemma is, for most of us, it's already completed the mission. Now all it's doing is reinforcing, because we're starting from the imaginary fact. So now it's just reinforcing it, just assuming it does the slightest little insinuation, and you feel like completely that, yeah? But if you can have a free sample and see it as not you, then you see it as advertising. It's trying to sell you something, yeah? And I have a story. This rug reminds me of it. I was going around the world in 2000, and I went to Turkey, and went to Istanbul, and I was staying at a guest house, and I met up with a couple of people. We went to the big area where they have this blue mosque, a famous mosque, and not far from it is a place called the Sophia. And this man with a very nice suit with gray and black hair came and spoke really perfect English. And he said, "Hey, I'd like to show you around." I was a little suspicious, but he showed us the places in this. And then he took us to this brick building. There was a side door. He knocked on the door, and it was almost like we were like a baton. Another guy looking quite like him opened it. We were just given to that guy, and the other guy, I never saw him again. And we were brought into a rug emporium, like this. They're a very big business there. And then suddenly, a couple of guys that looked just like the first and second guy come out with rugs. And first they go, "Hey, Mr. They go, "What's your name?" I go, "Paul." And they go, "Mr. Paul, do you want some Turkish coffee? Apple juice?" "Apple juice, I'll have apple juice." "Okay, Mr. Paul, sit here." And there's a couple other people there. And then they start doing the show. They're fucking whipping these rugs, and the light's hitting it, and they're beautiful, way past this. And going on and on, and you can stay there for 3 hours. They'll just get you drunk on apple juice and fucking zapped out, and they just at it. But you think, I didn't have a flaw. FLOOR. I didn't live anywhere. I had a built-in immunity to buying a fucking rug. And then he said, "Well, we could fold it so you can put it in your backpack." I'm not going to go to Thailand with a freaking Oriental rug on my back. It didn't matter how good the advertising was, I didn't have a flaw. That's the difference. Most of us are already in the made-up fact, and then the mental state and all the narration is just reinforcing it all freaking day. This possibility is like you don't have a flaw, and then you see the Turkish salesman trying to convince you to buy something that makes absolutely no sense to you. Zilch. Yeah. Now, if you take yourself to be the fact, then you've got to have tons of skillful means to fight the fucking reinforcement and the constant insinuation and the assumption and the presupposing. But if you've seen it, you don't need that. The skillful means aren't necessary. Yeah? Especially if you have a way of life as an action figure. I've been corrected already by recovery. 31 years. I'm not doing fucking anything. I'm not burning down houses. I'm not trying to figure out how to get over on things. It's all done. See, if I think this is me, I'm going to work on it forever. But to me, I see it as a Toyota, basically. It's like a utilitarian. It's not veering off the roads anymore. I'm not backing in every day to other cars. I'm just going along. Very little observation necessary. So when you don't see the fact as a fact, you'll see the reinforcing and your nodding of it and all this will be put under suspicion. And sooner or later, you're going to see the activity of what you're not, and you'll get a sense of what you are, because what you are is the seeing of what you're not. That's what we are. We're the seeing of what we're not. Instead of using that seeing and having it being identified as what we're not, and then what you're not looking for what you are, is the biggest blindness here. When what you are is using what it truly is, to look for what it is the biggest blindness. This is the dilemma. You think that if you got interested and you put all your focus into something, it's definitely going to lead to the goal. But in this case, it doesn't. There's a great master, Ramana Maharshi. He said it this way. He says there's a presupposing. The word pre is important because the whole magic trick we're under is of time. Yeah? Us as these action figures, we believe time is linear. We believe there was a past, there's a present, and it's inexorably moving to a future. The mental state doesn't see it that way. The mental state produces something and then presupposes the producing to be that which is producing. The product claims to be the producer of all the products. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So he says there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing. The presupposing is that it's existing. Yeah. So there's a mixing of the subject and the object. Yes. So now the thing is seen as existing, but it's not the thing that exists. It's the subject. Yes. So he sees, so there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing that takes itself to be existing somewhat, and then it says, and now it wants to seek salvation for the non-existent thing. He's explaining the whole thing, yeah? And he says, if that's the case, your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing. How can they destroy it? If that which we're doing, unbeknownst to us, and we believe it's leading us somewhere, when it's actually reinforcing the place we're trying to get out of, which is imaginary, so we're giving reality to a false place by trying to get out of it. The beauty of this is that it takes no time to get out of an imaginary place. You just see it as imaginary, yeah? There's no solution you need to apply to an imaginary problem. If you apply a solution, that's a big problem, yeah? Because the solution lends reality to the imagined problem. This is the power that we are that's unbeknownst to most of us. Maybe because you don't see it like a superhero, it's in the activity of this whole place. We're dreaming. We're in the act of dreaming. And the dreaming has taken itself to be the dreamt, and therefore to feel real as the dreamt, this place has to seem freaking real. Yeah? What's one to do? Well, maybe for a little bit, nothing. Yeah? Let's see what happens if somehow, maybe you see the whole system you're attempting to use to arrive somewhere is a failed system. Maybe to me, the first awakening is a rude awakening. Yeah? You realize this is incapable of getting what you want. Yeah? In fact, it's exactly what you're looking for disguised as what you're not. Yeah? What's looking through who's looking is what you're looking for, but you're using it being claimed as a who to look for the what. While it's at all times it's the what. So there's a great statement by a Zen master, Wang Po. First of all, I'm not talking to you, and it's not coming from me. I learned a long time ago to talk to you about the message doesn't go anywhere. To talk to the message about you goes somewhere. So basically, we're trying to throw it over everyone's head. Yeah? And I've realized your limited ability to reach. So I can throw it over your head, and I can't miss everywhere. I can throw it this way. It doesn't matter, as long as you don't catch it. Yeah? And so Wang Po is describing this whole situation. He's looking at everyone here, but he sees everyone here as Buddha, in a way. Yeah? And he goes, hey, Steve, Mary, Jim, Sue, a.k.a. Buddha, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. Now, he would never say that to anyone other than the Buddha. Why would he? It's totally appropriate, though you think you're Steve, he begs to differ. He's talking right to the Buddha. Hey, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself. And you can't use big M mind to find mind. And you can't use light to find light. You can do it for eons and nothing's going to happen. You see the fundamental speed bump? Yeah. As soon as you try to go, the whole system ignites. Yeah? Whew, incredible. As soon as you, no matter how subtle it is, it initiates the whole conceptual framework that suddenly the what's looking is seemingly forgotten and the who's looking becomes reinforced, and then it goes to such an absurd length, the who starts looking for the what, while at every moment being the what it's looking for. I think it should be very relieving, because these are like spiritual shoes, really. Just I'm putting them out there like they were put out to me. And if you put your foot in and it fits, wear it. Yeah. To me, my spiritual pants fell down and I never picked them back up. I saw through everything. Because when I heard that, I had been using the Buddha to seek the Buddha since I've been 6 years old. I've been trying to get out of me as me. The only way to be out of me is see I'm not in me. That's the only way. And that's an inherent condition. You have never been in what you think you want to get out of. You've never been in it. That's the message. So you don't escape, you're before escape. You don't get freed from the bondage of self, you see it before the bondage. And you see it's an activity that which is free from it is entertaining. Yeah? And then what happens? I don't know. You'll find out. For me, acceptance came into the situation. And this thing, before that, was seen as an urban renewal project, and it was being fucking worked on constantly. Critiquing, going over, self-blame. I should have stayed with the guru longer. I missed the fucking flower transmission or something. It's all a thing. It's just keep on, keeping on, keeping on, keeping on, keeping on. And all the movement to wanting to know God just emphasizes the knower of God, which is what you're not. Yes. So this, So what I see, this happened once very clearly. I was leading a thing in AA, this workshop, and it's when we do an inventory about 3 common manifestations of self in our lives, which are resentments. Resentment is like re-feeling something. Sometimes something that never even happened. It's just a re-feeling. Fear, and then harm's done to others, and we look at our sexual behavior in the pursuit of what we want. So you look at it that way. So right before the inventory process, he makes a statement. He says, being convinced, that's self. So being convinced means to believe with certainty. Now, being. It isn't, I was convinced, or you're going to be convinced. It's being convinced. Just looking at your own situation. Being convinced that self, manifested in a lot of ways, is what has defeated us. Yeah. Wait a minute. So he separates the two. There's self that defeats us. So here's the us, and then there's something called self that we're all entertaining. The us is entertaining the self, but as a self. All right, so the self manifests in these ways has defeated me, defeated us. We were going to look at its common manifestations, and then he goes to resentment and fear and stuff like that. And so when I saw it as a foreign installment, I was unbelievably. I had read this sentence so many times. When I saw it as a foreign installment, a possibility arose, which was I can be free from it. Yeah? And then suddenly, there was this big flash from since I've been 6 years old to that moment, and it didn't take any time, but it scanned my whole life, and I saw that I've been trying to be free as it, through it, for it, with it, my whole freaking life. I saw the futility of it in like a flash, and it was all explained, because if I'm identified as it, I'm not free to entertain true freedom. I'm trying to be free as it, and that's hell, that's bondage, yeah? But when I saw it wasn't me, then the possibility, hey, I could be free of something that I'm not, you better believe it. And I'm saying, over the years, I've come to the conclusion it's inherently so. That nothing really needs to be undone because nothing was really done. It's been dreaming, yeah? We believed we lost our nature by becoming identified, but it never happened. Because when you have a big moment or a little moment or any moment, when it hits, it tells you it's always been this way. So basically, like in the Course, they would have the atonement, which means I don't need to forgive anything because nothing ever happened. Yeah. So you see, oh, it's so beautiful. It doesn't exclude all this either. That's the beauty of it. It's beautiful. This is totally included. And it makes no sense. It's like your head, like a dog, goes, But the mental logic thinks, well, if that isn't so, then this, it just has so many weird fucking ideas when people will be at a meeting. If that isn't so, I'll just lay on my couch all day. You probably won't, You're programmed. Your little action figure is going to have a destiny. It's going to do its shit. You think you have a lot of say in the matter. Yeah, if you're a cocaine addict, shoot some cocaine right now. You won't have any say. I'll be fucking running around in fucking Great Barrington. That's how much it would take. All your spiritual resume wouldn't do anything. This action figure would override it completely. Yeah. So this is just, I can explain it if you want. But I really don't want to, but I'll give it a shot. I find you can study what you're not. Yeah? You can know what you're not. You're experiencing what you're not every day. You can't apply that to what you are. You cannot know what you are. You can't study what you are, and you cannot have an experience of what you are. There's only one possibility for us is being it. And we're being it right now, even though the thought system doesn't think so. It's true. We're being it. Yeah? So the wanting to acquire knowledge about it isn't useful, to tell you the truth. But if you turn that wanting to get knowledge about what you're not, that has value. At least you'll get a modicum of an understanding that will allow you to travel lighter every once in a while. If you see you can never study, you can never know it, yeah, you'll give up that fucking noble idea of knowledge. In this case, it doesn't make any sense, knowledge. You're way past knowledge, you're being it. I would hope that knowledge would be put down. If there was an option, would you rather know or be, for sure? Because being doesn't demonstrate much thought or effort, does it? I'm seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching right now. I didn't go to seeing classes today. Seeing, hearing, Yeah, and it seems like I see a lot of shit I don't want to see, so I don't really have any volition to it, you know what I mean? The seeing happens first, and then the idea of me as the seer comes up later. Can't you see that? Which comes first? Do you come first? No, you're made up. Conscious contact is first. Then the mental state arises and runs a story. It does. It claims the consciousness and says, I'm the seer. And this is the foundation of dualism. The seeing now becomes seer-seen, subject-object. Hearing, hearer-heard, subject-object. Yes, this is all what non-duality is proclaiming is not true. There is no seer-seen, there's seeing. There's no hearer and heard, there's hearing. There's feeling, tasting, touching, doing, thinking. This whole place is verbing, it's dreaming. Verbing. The mental state claims the verbing to imply a noun. I can show you right now. The selfing, I gave some talks in LA, and the guy who had listened to me for a while came and he says, all right, Paul, I use this terminology of selfing, which is what I believe the mental state and with its thoughts and memories and perceptual interpretation is doing. Yeah? So he says, all right, let's call selfing Pauling, and let's call self Paul. All right? So he says, how much is Paul Pauling on a bad day? Like 70%, 80% of the day? And all right, how much is Paul pulling on a good day? Maybe 10%, 20%, and he went on and on and on. But I said, no, you don't understand. The Paul is derived from the Pauling. The selfing is claimed by the mental state. The verbing is claimed by the mental state to imply the noun. So Paul comes after the Pauling. And yet when people are in that position, they think Paul is doing the Pauling. You see? It's just a switcheroo. But it's really the selfing being claimed. So let's see, the doing being claimed to imply the doer, and then suddenly the doer is presupposed before the doing. And there goes pride, guilt, and shame. It all grows from there. All of it grows from there. All of it grows from ownership. Yeah? Same, everything. Yeah? Thinking. There's thinking, and then there's an implying that there's a thinker. Now suddenly the thinker gets presupposed, and now all the thoughts are my thoughts. Yeah? And then the thoughts own me. It's incredible, man. You can see it. And the freedom is inherent. That's the beautiful news. This isn't a call to arms. It's disarming. You realize every time you pick up arms, you go to war with your fucking self. It doesn't go anywhere. Yeah? It's a dropping of that. And it's not like something you do. It's a reaction from hearing the message. It just drops you. Yeah? And there's a pause. And that pause is before thought. And maybe, suddenly the horse will be put in front of the cart. And every time the head says it's moved, you'll see through it. You'll see it as an advertising, not as a fucking reinforcement of the fact. The head is not waking up to an observation. You're fucked. It's implying you're fucked. Something buys it, and then it works on that, yeah? It assumes, it's like when the fish arises, let's say consciousness, arises to the bait, yeah? You're a loser. Nothing's ever going to be good or whatever. As soon as consciousness grabs the hook, it feels like a fish. And then it also feels like a historical fish and a future fish. There's no historical fish and there's no future fish. It's insinuated, it's implied. If that catches ground and you start from there, it's a fact. And then all your behavior is going to try to unfact the fact, and it's just going to enlarge the fucking thing. I did it, I had it with AA. I came into recovery, and I thought I was quite successful at avoiding tons of shit I didn't want to deal with, you know. I did. But what I found was, my whole life I was trying to make shit unreal. Yeah. And then when I got into AA, I finally let it all catch up to me, and I let it be as real as it wanted to be, and it revealed itself to me that it's unreal. But my wanting to make it unreal gave it as much reality as it ever could have had. This isn't a random example. These are patterns. This is how it works. This is the dissecting of dreaming. Time is the biggest influence. Yeah, look at everyone driving today. It's all based on time. They got to go somewhere. Something. Time is like a dry current we're in all the time. All the time it's pushing this whole situation going on. Yeah. You can't see time through time. You see it from timelessness. Your inherent state is not of time. As Jesus says, you know, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. This world is of time, but we are not. We are not of time. We are of timelessness. And that's when you can see the problem as an activity. Yeah? And no matter how fast the selfing is, and it's quick, the brain implying that there's a self that's doing everything is maybe a second or two. So when an action is noted, it's already claimed the action before you even it's got you drawn immediately. And I don't think any process can get before it. It's the quickest process that I've ever seen. Yeah? But it can't beat timelessness. Because in time, it still takes a little bit to get the gun out, but in timelessness, the gun is always out. Yeah? That's our inherent state. You can see what you're not from there. and you'll see it's an activity. And it's not a fact. It never was, and then there's a righteous fear that it's going to be again. It never was. When you vanquish an imaginary foe, you never have to return to see if it's resurrected. There wasn't one to begin with. This is a form of maintenance that doesn't demand maintenance. Being is its own maintenance. Seeing maintains seeing. Seer seeing distorts seeing, turn it into a thing called looking, and we're using the seeing, masquerading as looking, to look for the seeing. And we're blind as hell. Just you don't need to prepare for it, get ready for it. That's too late. You're so there. It's like the fish. I can imagine a fish, if it had self-centeredness, could actually live a life thinking it was dry. Yeah, and going to wet meetings and reading about what it would be like to be wet, and its greatest joy would be hoping maybe I can experience wetness once while it's completely drenched. Yeah, but because it's always drenched, it probably doesn't fucking know it is. Yeah, we are always that. Yeah, maybe if we could really believe we were not that to become it, maybe we would get it. But it's already so. Yeah, it's already so. And what happens for this action figure, and I call this an action figure. Yeah, it's like, when we grew up in kids in America, you buy Batman and then you could get like complimentary action figures. That's what I see ourselves, really. We're just action figures. So the action figure is one of the beneficiaries of this. And what's happened with this action figure, it's become a traveling lighter has stabilized. Yeah. Now in my head, I thought traveling lighter would mean everything's going to be great and I'm going to get everything I want. But really, how it's turned out over the years is just whatever life has in store for me, whatever it may be, I'm going to travel lighter through it. And now I've been observing this for 20, 15, whatever many years, and I have to, I have to come to the conclusion, what more did I ever want? Yeah. As this little subject-object hybrid, where it can be heavy or light, hey, I'd like to lean on the light side, but I realize I can't do that. But if I see myself as not that, it gets a byproduct of being able to do it, yeah, without doing it, yeah. And really, what more do you want? Some people guys just sent me a long email. This, for me, it's inclusive. This has its own little thing in time. Yeah, it's like a dreaming in time. It has importance, everything like that. Yes, and then there's the context. So this is the context. Neither one has to be thrown out for the other. Yeah, the content is perfectly just as it is in the context, and the context is untouched by it all. Yeah, sort of like the sky, allowing everything. It doesn't allow it; it just is. But tons of shit move through the sky, but never leave a mark on the sky. Yeah? So the sky is sort of like what we are, like mind. So tons of stuff comes through, but never leaves a mark. Or like a screen, where that screen in a movie theater could play 800 movies, but it never gets wet in a melodrama, or it never gets ripped open in a war movie. It just allows everything to come and go because it doesn't come and go. It's just there. That's sort of like what we are. Yeah? And then what we're not is appearing on ourselves as a screen, and the interest of attention is predicated or habitually drawn to get into the play, yeah, but at the expense of this context, yeah. So then we get two in here, and then the forgetting gets out of hand, and then we try to remember, but as the character. And then non-duality shows up and tries to help us get over those stubborn little mistakes of trying to arrive at where we already are by not telling us what it's going to be like, but by questioning us. So by seeing what you're not, you start finding out what you are. That's what happened. Instead of trying to find out what you are from what you're not, the negation of what you're not allows you to find out what you are. Yeah, it's just a different move. And then once you get used to it, the mental logic doesn't go this way. Yeah. If you're in the mental logic, it makes sense. But if you see it from outside, it's insane. Yeah. So this is a concurrent thing that's running at the same time, but it's not of time. It's a timeless. So the logic is sort of like you have it by giving it away, where if you were a cocaine dealer, you never practiced that principle, right? You're never going to give your cocaine away. But that's sort of what it's like. So you have it by giving it away. This is the kind of thing, because it's implying the relaxation of something that's inherently so, yeah? You don't have to rush for it, because it ain't going anywhere. You're never going to miss the boat, no matter what you think. And even this is so beautiful. The Course in Miracles says, even this, hey, if this doesn't hit you, whatever, just hold life as this. You and I are the dreaming of this dreaming, and we're going to dream ourselves out of it. And as we do, the dream will get happier. So you can't lose. So you could see a meeting like this for some of us as just that. So here we are in the dreaming, and we're entertaining these ideas, and it's going to allow us to dream ourselves out of the dreaming, and we'll feel happier. Or this will feel like, hey, chilled and satisfied and content. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So you can't lose. Either this, or it doesn't matter. Because everything that you're doing, even though you have tons of opinions about it, will be put to that purpose. You'll dream yourself out of the dreaming. The Course talks about a Holy Spirit, which is another aspect of mind. In AA, we have the higher power. And in AA, the whole point is to turn one's will and life over to the care of that higher power, which means the same information your mental state is collating and coming up with a narrative and then constantly defending it, the same information, the same data, the same mineral resources, the Holy Spirit will take it and use it for a complete different purpose. Yeah, exact same. Yeah, exact same. So the energy and where it's going to go is based on the vehicle it's put in. So I see it a lot in recovery. People have incredible faith in the thought system. And in that faith, they believe a lot of shit that's actually not happening. And actually, it's so strong that something that they believe is going to happen a month or two from now can ruin their night. It's incredible. So I've seen people on July 28th be so afraid of what they thought was going to happen on August 15th, they were petrified on July 28th. This is the mental state where it plays God. It plays God in this time, yeah? So it loves to live in what, it loves to, you and I are what's happening, and it loves to have what's happening engaged in what's not happening, yeah? So right now, most of us, if I'm flipping out tonight, it's not based on tonight. It's usually last week and next week. Yeah? I mean, you don't need 800 examples. Just see it. See one example, it tells you everything. So if that's the case, if my mental state is attempting to displace what's happening into what's not happening, it seems like it's doing a good job in one way. And then if there's a belief there, then it goes to an insane idea that I've got to get into the moment. And then a lot of people sell you a lot of books based on how to get into the moment. And then the follow-up, how to stay in the moment. And my feeling is, you can't be out of a moment. You've never been out of any moment. You've been in, ever, no matter what your head's telling you. Look at the surveillance camera, you were there. Oh, I never showed up for that relationship. Hey, she has tons of pictures. You were fucking there. You just believe some insane idea. I used to see myself, seriously. This lady had pictures of me. I had a whole story. I was bummed out, but all the pictures, I was happy, smiling like I'm having a great time. I probably was. But the narration was no. And it overrode what was happening. It's amazing, isn't it? Really. It's insane. Every picture. And she said, I thought you looked happy most of the time. Probably was. But the narrative was, no, I'm not happy. I've got to get out of here. How are you going to get a sense? You see the futility of what we're relying on. It's a failed system. It's a failed system. It's not meant to be relied on. It's actually, to me, in the early days, it was like CNN Newsflash, dropping some heavy headlines all the time. Now it's like Comedy Central. It's fucking hilarious. There's so much comedic material just in one day's narration driving up here. I could have had like a 4-hour skit, you know? It's just unbelievable. And the beauty is when you see, if it's like that old horror movie, he's inside the house. See, we start from there. We actually think it's in, and we are that. And then all of this stuff is just to reinforce it. It isn't true. It has never nor ever will be you. It's implying it was you, and it's implying it will be you, so that you feel like you are that now. This is what the head does. The head goes, I was Paul as a body. I will be Paul as a body. Therefore, I am Paul as a body now. And as soon as that gets established, it's just riffing. And then what we're left with is trying to become masters of skillful means, because it's fucking unruly. You go for a 3-month retreat, you get maybe 3 days feeling pretty good. The cost ratio is way off. 3 days to 3 fucking months, it's like having more, you know. Because you're fighting. We're outmatched, yeah? See if you are that or not. If you're not that, then all of its ways that it's suggesting for you to get free from it, truly as it really, you'll see through. And maybe you will be at that moment what you've been looking for right now. Yeah? And maybe that right now will be every now, right now. Yeah? And now, in my observation, I never get gypped. I'm here all the fucking time. Sleeping, everywhere. I missed something. I didn't miss fucking anything. It's just here, whatever's arising, it's like, you know. I don't know. Well, I could go on and on, but I feel like I delivered it, eh? It's a little spiritual subpoena. Yeah. We gotta just get the little gist of it. It's all it is it can be looking just like this, but you're thinking this is where you are, always looking from something, and then suddenly you see this that was implying it was you as a you. You see it, yeah. That which you were looking from all day, you finally see. You see it. And sooner or later, the emphasis will be on what's seeing, and it ain't that. Yeah? Because you're at the moment seeing it. And all it is an activity. It's like activity that goes so much like this, it almost looks as if it's solid. Yeah? But it's not. It's all reinforced. And then it's like if you see a helicopter blade, it gets so, and suddenly it seems like it's just, well, that's when you see the body. Yeah? And if you don't believe this stuff, I did tons of cocaine, you know, when I was out there, but I never thought I was cocaine, ever, ever. This addiction of the mental state to the idea of being the doer, the thinker, the feeler is already in place. You know how far I went in cocaine use? Hugely far. I went on 10-day cocaine retreats quite a lot, which I would match to any other 10-day retreat. Much better, because you're going to see fucking everything. And I shot in my neck, everything. If anyone was going to become cocaine or think they were, it would be me. We're starting at that level of addiction. the mental state to the idea of being the doer, the thinker, the seer, the hearer. We're starting there. We're not seeing the drug as other, we're calling the drug me. Yeah? And there's no solution applying solutions. It's before you see that it's not so. That's all. If you see it as so, you're going to be applying tons of solutions and they're going to have to fail. Yeah? That's the only way they'll serve you, because you'll see it's not that you haven't had the right solution. What you're calling you isn't you. When you're left with these devices and see them as not yours, that's where the possibility arises. And the possibility isn't a dualistic one. It isn't, oh, it's going to be great, matched with is going to be bad. No, it's before both. Yeah? And then you get a little taste of that in your life. Yeah? And it goes a long, 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 long way. That's why we have the YouTubes. It's just to reinforce these ideas, yeah? Because the habit is to think the cart is in front of the horse. And so you just want to keep switching, and one time, it'll stay there like that, and then the next time it switches back, you'll see it as isn't so. That's not so. See, there's so many people talk to me, and they believe they're the movement of their head. They go, I was feeling so great, but then something happened and I went, that wasn't you. You weren't that, and you're not the boom, yeah? You're neither, you're that, yeah? See, the thing is, all the gymnastics are used to imply, yeah, you're the gymnast. Yes, you're the gymnast. You're not, yeah? The gymnastics, going this way and we're going that way doesn't mean fucking anything, really. I'm disconnected doesn't mean it's so. I'm connected doesn't mean it's so. It doesn't. You have to, that connection has to be seen as inherently so, and it is. It's not like you're making something up. You're seeing it, you're seeing from it as it is. It's beyond effect and cause. It's just here, completely here. None of what I've done will leave a mark on it, ever. Yeah. And if you love to meditate as the action figure, meditate. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that. But I'll tell you, I must have believed I was going somewhere to meditate 13 hours a day in a fucking forest monastery in Thailand. I mean, I'm not going to do that for blood pressure. No fucking way. I was assuming I was going to transcend, and I'd be there to be noticed to transcend. It doesn't, I'm not seeing that to be so anymore. You can't transcend an imaginary place. You can't get out of what you're not in. It's impossible. The only way you can have the joy of getting out is you have to make the in real. And maybe, and you'll find the getting out and being in it will not be balanced. You'll be seemingly in it a lot more than when you get out of it. You'll get the joy of feeling like I escaped, but the most of the time you'll be in the prison. Yes? If you see it before, neither of them. Yeah, yeah. Any questions?
So some non-dual teachers do advocate, just being in silence, meditating, that kind of thing. Maybe they're talking about just being, not trying to get anywhere. Or do you think there's any difference?
The thing is, for me, let's say you sit in silence, the mental state has already claimed it, and it's you sitting in silence. That's why I don't advocate it. It's luscious for the mental state.
Noble.
Oh, it loves it, man. A spiritual self is fucking, that's an upgrade from the addict self. Yeah, so let's say, the claiming is so quick. Let's say I'm meditating, right? The meditating is being claimed by the mental state to imply the meditator. If you don't see it, you're going to look from its product. So you're now going to become a meditator. Yeah? The meditation will be claimed to reinforce the idea of being the meditator. Not saying there's right or wrong about meditation, but it'd be helpful to see that, because that's what's happening. That which is claiming everything has no fucking respect for 5,000-year-old lineages, or there's no spiritual barbed wire that cuts it out. Whatever is happening, it's going to claim that there's someone that's doing or they're being done to by it. It's very, very fast. I don't believe there's a fat process quick enough to get before it. I don't. That's why, and and everyone has their own say. I stick with what downloads in here. So I don't push retreats. I don't believe in, I think in one day, today in Great Barrington is intense enough. Why would I want to pay money to go on an intensive? Makes no fucking sense. Drive in New York City on Saturday, that was fucking intense. Give it 150, I did, for $50 for the parking. So, but you know what I mean? And there's so many people put it that way. I just want it to be an invitation and find out. And if it triggers something, and after a while you see a traveling lighter, far out, doing its job. Yeah? But I'm without the explaining of the quickness of the mental state claiming to be you, I think it's almost like, cigarette pack, they have that warning. I think there should be spiritual warning on it, yes. Like when someone says, oh, we're all going to sit in silence, that mental state is going to imply it's you sitting in silence. Just see it, silence is great. Yeah, but just don't watch it. Catch the thief. Yeah. I did all that stuff. I love it. But then when I ran into these teachings, I could feel something. Because I went to talks and I felt like something's off here. Everyone's describing consciousness and light and your love and everything. And then I go back and that doesn't feel like me. I don't feel like I'm love all day or whatever like that. So the descriptions of what I am just reinforced what I wasn't. Yeah. So now this had another burden. I got to become loving, or I've got, you know what I mean? It's just another demand to do more shit all the fucking time because of the way I was hearing it. Yeah. So I would hear descriptions of what I am as what I'm not. I much rather hear descriptions of what I'm not, and I'll find out what I am. If I am that they're describing, then why is it seeming? It's like. When I was a kid, I was Catholic, and we go to a class, Catholic thing every week. And they go over the attributes of God. The 3 attributes was omnipresent, so it's everywhere, omniscient, all-knowing, and omnipotent. And as a little kid, I really wondered, if God's everywhere, why am I not bumping into it? I mean, I'm bumping into people I don't want to see, but how is it everywhere? I feel like I'm somewhere. Which must be somewhere and everywhere. How is it? Because we're the obscuring agent. I would say we are God, taking ourselves to be something else, truly. Yeah. So I just like to have these warnings in spiritual circles because it wasn't there when I was going to satsang, and people would ask me, well, you heard all this stuff. And that's why you spoke. No, I started speaking because I didn't hear this stuff. I didn't hear the warning sufficiently, in my view, because the way Ramana prefaces is the problem. The greatest mystery is reality attempting to attain reality. How the hell would reality want to attain reality unless reality took itself to be something else? I want to question that. And then reality would see the absurdity of attaining reality, and maybe, just maybe, in no time at all, would be being reality. And when it finally hit him, it would realize it's always being reality. That this whole thing that it thought wasn't so. Yeah? Beautiful, isn't it? So that this presupposed non-existent thing, what's looking is what you're looking for, the seeker is the sought. All of these cryptic ideas are attempting to imply you're it. Yeah? but they got to get around the thing that's going to arise and claim it, yeah? So they're trying to, so Hying Po doesn't go, hey, Pat, you can't use Pat to find Pat. But because he knows, but he has to get through Pat, not to Pat. The message has to get through the defense system, which is your identification as Pat, to get to the Buddha. Yeah? So the message is, so when people come to the talks, they think they're attending. That's not what the message is directed at. It's directed at what we are, that which never left or comes here. Yeah? And that, when the Buddha hears, hey, you can't use yourself to find yourself, it hits beautifully. Yes? And then what happens? There's a loss of interest in Paul looking for the Buddha, because the Paul is like Buddha, aka Paul. Yeah. So, it ain't gonna work. Yeah. It's just that simple. So let's put it, you don't put it all down as an act. Everything's put down. And then things get rearranged, and to me, I see it as a horse in front of the cart thing. And now, like in Zen, they'd say you see blue is blue and red is red. Things become very, very clear, and most people will never ask another metaphysical question again. Never, because you'll see the pointlessness, because what's looking for an answer is the answer. You think it's the questioner, but the questioner is the answer. Yeah, so starve the questioner, and maybe the questioner, not getting its answers, will find out it's the fucking answer. Yeah. So, any questions? So, you get it, eh? Yeah, I can tell. It's in there. So you've all been served a spiritual subpoena. You'll see what happens. Yeah? And if you're interested in it, there's tons of videos and stuff like that. And people who've seen me years ago, nothing new. It's not like, what's new in non-duality 2019? Absolutely fucking nothing. Yeah? You can't add on and subtract from it. So, but that's what we do. We put the videos out for repetition, because repeating an invitation is different than repeating a thesis. Yeah? We're constantly repeating the invitation. Because you never know where you are. It's like a lazy Susan. One of them gets through. Yeah, like at least one of them gets through the Death Star defense and goes to, like, I used to call it spiritual sperm. Yeah, that's why we don't have moments of quiet here, because the selfing would regroup. We just try to fucking overwhelm the system so that there's something to get through. Like let's say the system has 20 hands. We want to fill up the 20 hands and throw another ball in. Yeah. So it's like spiritual sperm. You release tons of it, and only one needs to get to the mother egg. But if it hits the mother egg of mind conceives something. Hey, I may not be that. And then it conceives something else. I can be free from it. And I bet you it will start having that appear. Yeah? In this long, drawn-out, time-based affair. You'll travel later.
So would you say absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake? Page 449.
I would say nothing's happened, period.
Yeah.
They can seem like mistakes, but yeah. I really believe this is dreaming. I see this as verbing. Everything's verbing. I don't see a noun here at all. I think there's an implying of a noun taken to be fact, but I don't see a noun. So I really don't believe anything happened. Sometimes I've overdosed and I went out for a long period of time. They brought me back with this thing called Narcan. And, they seemed like being gone, this was like it was never so. That's my feeling, yeah. So it doesn't mean, I'm in it, yeah.
Paulie, do you think the selfing gets more complex to protect the selfing?
Of course it does, especially when it gets threatened. It doesn't get threatened by 3-month retreats. you'll know when it's threatened because it usually brings out the golden oldie big guns. You're unlovable, you've done something very bad. Basically, it has us living out sentences already. We've already been convicted in its court, we have. And it always denies us probation and parole. And yet when the system's threatened, you'll see it, yeah. Usually it's like an explosion, but it dissipates quickly. Just don't act out and don't die and things will get good.
It shows up sometimes for me as like, I'm losing my fucking mind.
That's the narration, yes.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
That's the goal of everyone,
Yeah.
is to lose their mind, but they want to be there to know it.
But it's
That's
freaky,
part of
it brings up a lot of fear.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Shit. The system's trying to survive. We used to use a story. I hope it gets across the thing. There's a snake, yeah, and the snake molts every year. It doesn't do the molting, doesn't it? The skin just falls off the snake. It gets new skin. And so we're going to look at that event from 2 points of view. So from the skin's point of view and from the snake's point of view. So the skin has a sense of the molting is starting to happen, and it's afraid, very afraid, because its whole story is that it's the snake. Yeah? So it knows that when it falls off, the snake will continue, and the whole story is blown out of water. So now from the skin's point of view, it starts, they jack into the brain. It tells the snake, buy a lot of moisturizer. You know what I mean? Lather up. Don't go out in the sun. Watch out for that rock. This and that. Yes, yes. And it's like Armageddon. Now, from the snake's point of view, it's hallelujah. When the old skin falls off, it'll be lighter. It'll travel lighter. It'll attract female snakes better. It'll go over rocks smoother. Yeah. So, from the snake's point of view, it's hallelujah. But from the skin's point of view, it's Armageddon. But the skin's got the megaphone up there. And it's yelling, 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 don't fucking do this, don't fucking do this, yes? And yet, the snake's not doing it, it's a fact, yeah? The skin was never truly even on. It was just assumed and implied to be on, yeah? Yes. I've heard those voices, sure, I've seen it, Some people go through things because when the system gets shook up, it's like you've been running, let's say, on like 110, and then suddenly 220 gets downloaded. You start feeling different, yeah? And it's not comfortable in the beginning for the head, because the head takes it as all systems are failing, in some way. It can go into like almost like a panic attack, much longer than just a few minutes, yeah? Because it's a threat, it's a threat, it's a threat. But there you have it, If you don't act out, you don't die, you're going to be able a lot more, you have to get upgraded. Just like the 100-watt bulb, if you shot too much electricity, it would blow out the filament, yeah? You've got to upgrade the bulb, so to speak, and the nervous system and shit. And then you're able to, show up here, basically, yeah? You're not having a fucking psychic, a panic attack every minute, yeah? It sort of chills out, but then it's like things are different, The seeing is, it's like to me, it's an upgrade. Now, I wouldn't pay the cost of that upgrade, but then you have no choice, yeah? So you go, but, yeah. Yes?
Can you talk a little more just about act out, like what?
Well, for me, acting out was if I went and started doing drugs and stuff again.
Right.
So I know a number of people would call me when they thought they woke up or something, and if they had a little pink cloud for a few months, and then they started getting fucking scared because now things were really different. And then I'd always just tell them, just don't act out and don't die, and things will be better. Basically, but it's not. None of this. See, when people hear this, then they think this happens. Nothing has to happen. Nothing, and intended or not intended. When people tell you a moment they thought something occurred, it does a disservice to people in the mental state. Because now, let's say someone says, I always use this little story. Someone was walking through, let's say, Walmart, and they went into the appliance aisle, and it was like 10 in the morning on Sunday, and a toaster fell off the third shelf and hit them in the head, and they fucking woke up, right? And they share that with people. People are gonna go to fucking Walmart on Sunday mornings at 10, have a friend push a toaster on their heads, hoping to duplicate what that person said happened. But it can look any way it wants. If it wants to pop up its head like a groundhog for, big, yeah, it can do whatever it wants, yeah? But there's no one awake. We are already awake. We're inherently awake. You can be awake to that fact or you can be asleep to that fact, but it doesn't change the fact, yeah? So I'm not a believer in that somebody wakes up. How can you realize what's always realized? Yeah, it doesn't. How can that which is always happening be a happening? It's just a narration here. So we try to say something has changed so much, whatever. But I've seen people, I got stuff from a guy, and there was a famous Tibetan Dzogchen teacher. Dzogchen is like the great perfection in Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. It's almost like non-duality, yeah? And so this guy was very well known as an enlightened person, and he got old, and he went into senility and dementia. And a lot of his followers got very fucking confused because they pinned it on the body. They thought him as the body was enlightened. And now him as the body is fucking drooling and fucking, what the fuck happened, yeah? You see? But he wasn't enlightened. Enlightenment may have been coming through, but it wasn't him. And therefore that happened, and then senility came through, and fucking dementia came through, and a lot of shit can come through. But what comes through doesn't make the thing, yeah? Or the no thing, yeah? Look at a life like some of us, down and out addict, and here I am talking about other things. Now, how could that Paul get here? There wasn't that Paul, and there isn't this Paul. That's how. And that's why people give me a lot of fucking comments on the things, and most of them are always directed at the messenger. They're missing the whole point. You're not going to get anything fucking from me that you don't already have. Yeah, I'm just trying to point out exactly what I saw. Yeah, and I didn't beseech it. I didn't work towards it. Yeah, there was such a futility, and then when it was framed in a certain way, it made fucking sense. And I realized what I seem to be using to get something can't pick it up. Yeah. Why? Because I'm not something other than it. I can know if I can know everything that I'm not, but I can never apply that to what I am. I was just taking myself to be something else. That was the dilemma. That's been corrected, and the correction said there was even no need for a correction. So it's, I don't have a tiny little pocket for the solution. I don't need any pocket. The solution is always available at all times. There was no problem. That's the solution. Now, are there problems? There's a problem going on for this, for sure. Yeah. Not right now, but it does. It has things, sure. And then people say, do you have any feelings? Of course you have feelings. Oh no, they have me in like a little fucking refrigerator, freezer, come out, they have to have two attendants because I don't recognize when someone says Paul. No. Those people have to live in caves. They need attendants. They can't or if they weren't in India, they'd be in an insane asylum here. They're out there. No, this has its own little world. It's doing its own little thing. Yet there's a sense, I went to the first satsang I went to. This lady from Europe spoke, And I came in and then, you know, I could feel the energy, which I like. And then I asked to share, and I said, you know, I was coming in here, I had read some books and started feeling some stuff. And I said, oh, I've been watching my emotional state, my physical state, my mental state, yes? And I said, now I come in this room and I see that which was assuming to be the watching of that is a mental state. So it was like the aperture opened up. It was so beautiful. So you don't know that the aperture, you think it's set, but it doesn't need to be set. Yeah. So self-centeredness. So I was claiming to be the one who's seeing the mental, emotional, physical states. Then that was revealed as not being me. That was a mental state. So then I left and I walked around, entertained the ideas, and then it happened again. There was a subtle claiming of being the one who was clear. Yes, I saw the mental state, seeing the mental state, but then I saw it again. And then it happened about 7 times, like 7 rings, and then I got something was like the 100 monkey phenomenon. I saw 7, and I realized, just boom, I said, wherever you are, this is going to arise and say it's you. Yeah. So don't be surprised. It's like somebody who has a terrible husband or wife, and then they call me and they're surprised they've been treated terribly. I said, fuck, should have gotten over that. It's been like this for 20 years. So now you've seen the thief about 7 times, yeah? Dressed as the policeman, dressed as the thief, and you're not that. And then it makes a leap. And then the idea of vigilance doesn't matter, yeah? This thing, the producing of the selfing is automatic. Yeah, as long as this seems to be there, as Ramana says, as long as there's a sense of individuality, there'll be a sense of free will. Is there free will? I would question it, but this feels like it has it. Yeah? Why would I want to work trying to convince this it doesn't have free will when its main programming is free will? Fucking stop trying to work this thing. Realize its limitations and move on. Yeah? I can't really, people spend a lot of time, oh, there is no free will. This thing, it doesn't matter how many times you say it, the programming thinks it has free will. Why do you need to argue with it? You're not that. Yeah? Move on. I swear, we still give this too much relevance. We still believe this can block us off from something. It can't. Yeah? It can't. This has, although probably enough work has already been done on this, now it can travel somewhat without causing too much attention from authorities, yes? So you're walking around, everything's cool. Mind unfettered, yeah? Just start roaming. Yeah? This isn't concentration and fucking focus, it's dispersal, yeah? It's a loss of the things you're interested in, and then the interest is free just to be interested. Yeah, just to be attentive. It doesn't have to be sent to be interested in a thing. It can just rest in interest and attention. To me, that's the sense of presence. It's undirected interest and attention. Yeah? You're just there, sensing presence all day. Yeah. So that's it, eh? Yes? Yeah, pass a hat or something.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.